Good morning, everybody. This is Omar Soto with the Tilted Lawyer Podcast. How you like that little snazzy intro? I will be joined shortly by Melissa DeCastro. Ileana is off doing lawyer stuff, and so she's not going to be joining the stream. But I have, well, when I first heard this interview with Jen Soto, my heart dropped because many of you have been following this case and have been interested in whether or not she's going to be charged. And we've talked about a lot of salacious details surrounding this case, including the gasping fact where she is telling her boyfriend to go sleep in the same bed with her 13-year-old daughter, Madeline, the night after her 13th birthday party, subsequently leading to her death, for which Stearns is charged for the murder. Many of you were wondering why Jen has not been charged with crimes. And it turns out back in April, she was the subject of an investigative subpoena. The problem with that is if you compel testimony from a potential suspect in the case, because of the Fifth Amendment, you cannot compel somebody to make incriminating statements against themselves. The end result of that is any truthful statements that she said in that interview are inadmissible for constitutional reasons. The question then becomes, is she never going to be charged? Is it no longer possible to charge her? And the answer to that is simply no. But they're going to have to find evidence that she lied during the investigation in order to bring charges. And the way that they're talking, it doesn't look like they plan on doing anything like that. Anyway, we're going to get through all of it, including listening to some of the highlights from that interview. It's an infuriating interview. I mean, you're going to get upset all over again. It's going to completely wreck your morning. Maybe not because it's Friday, but we have a lot to talk about, so we might as well just get into it. So stick around. It's going to be a good one.
Whatever you might be going through and wherever you might be, this is Omar Soto with the Tilted Lawyer Podcast. I'm here to take your mind off of things. Yes, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not giving you legal advice. We're going to sit and talk like people, as these are the candid thoughts of one practicing attorney, and it's after hours. So have a seat. Feel free to have a drink and join me. Let's get started.
That wasn't supposed to happen, folks. I'm having all kinds of technical issues today. Dominic is asleep at the wheel. Well, he's not. I'm trying to take over some of this technical stuff, and it doesn't always work out. But to Belle Mayhem's point, she says, I know I don't have a popular opinion, but Jen isn't the monster here. She may be a poor, careless, ignorant parent, but she didn't kill Maddie or participate consciously in her murder. Belle, respectfully, I have to disagree. She might not be the monster, but she may be a monster, because knowingly, if it can be established that she naively or purposefully allowed what Stephen was doing to Madeline to occur without intervention, without getting the aid of law enforcement, without telling somebody else if she was too scared to say anything because she was the victim herself, maybe. If she consciously allowed it to happen, then she is guilty, probably of felony murder, including a whole host of lesser included charges. I've given her the benefit of the doubt for a long time, but the more I start to listen to some of the statements that she gave law enforcement in this case, the less compassion I feel for her. Look, I have represented many clients in the position of Jen Soto, and the abuse in those cases looks a little bit different. When it's a genuine case where it's a lady who's also being abused and therefore she's blind or invisible to the abuse that's befallen her child, it just looks a lot different. There's typically physical domestic violence in the house, by way of a sexual assault, perhaps, by way of just straight up physical assault. Um, if you want to argue that she has like Munchausen by proxy and she's her robotic action, the fact that she's always drugged up, is evidence that she's being abused and trying to medicate herself, fine, except in her conscious waking moments, she appears to make conscious decisions that run counter to what any reasonable parent would do. Myself being a parent, many others who are parents out there, could not fathom repeating the actions of Jen Soto. I'm tired. I need to get some sleep. So why don't you just go sleep in the bed with Maddie? That little girl has been abused from maybe the age of 6, 7 years old. It's been years. There were thousands of pictures and videos recovered displaying horrific forms of abuse that befell Madeline at the hand of her boyfriend. We've suspected all along that her initial interviews that she gave to the media, that she gave to law enforcement, was bullshit, because it was. She concocted a story that was given to her by Stephen Stearns, it appears to me, and try to pass that off as, whatever, we were dropping her off and we don't know what happened and she has ADHD and I don't know, this is terrible. Hindering the investigation to find Madeline, she didn't give the appearance of somebody that was genuinely wondering whether or not her child was alive or dead, whether or not she was genuinely had disappeared into the woods, as that was a story. Oh, she has ADHD and she had this fantasy about running away into the woods. She knew that Madeline, it appears to me that she knew that Madeline was gone when she initially spoke to law enforcement, when she spoke to the media. And in this interview from this investigative subpoena, it appears to me that they knew, that law enforcement knew that Jen was full of shit. They knew, and they still know that Jen was lying. But they chose to pursue Soto with an investigative subpoena. Why does that matter? Well, it turns out she might not have been given formal immunity for her actions. She might not have written an agreement or signed an agreement to do that. But this is what it is. An investigative subpoena in Florida compels a person to attend and testify or produce documents before a court, a grand jury, or in this case, in Soto's case, state attorneys, during an investigation, proceeding, or trial for a violation of criminal statutes. The person cannot refuse to testify on the grounds that the testimony may incriminate them. However, that testimony, if it's offered and is truthful, cannot be used against them in subsequent prosecutions. In other words, your Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate yourself, well, you can't just compel a person to testify and make incriminating statements, which is why typically in civil cases, for example, you will find that civil proceedings will be delayed until the conclusion of a criminal case to not run afoul of the Fifth Amendment. Because if they're still facing criminal proceedings, then they cannot, in most cases, be forced to testify in a civil hearing and offer testimony that would incriminate them in pending criminal cases. And it's even, they protect that so fiercely, even if the person hasn't even been charged. You can't sit on pending criminal charges, such as what they did with Bill Cosby. Wait for him to testify in a civil hearing regarding the same investigation, and then try to charge him based on his civil testimony because of the Fifth Amendment. It's the reason why Bill Cosby is not in jail right now. So in this case, what they effectively did in compelling her testimony was they granted her immunity based on anything that she offered in that investigation, which was taken and done under oath, with the full understanding that this wouldn't be used against you unless you lie. And they did tell her that several times. So witnesses, the person not excused from testifying or producing evidence in certain prosecutions or ground testimony might incriminate himself. Use of testimony given or evidence produced, there's a state that talks about you can't use that against the person. So the immunity provided under Florida law is known as use and derivative use immunity. This means that the compelled statements and any information derived from those statements cannot be used against the witness in any subsequent prosecution except for perjury committed during testimony. That's important. And there's a state case, State versus Mitrani, going all the way back to I forget the year that state was, or that case was, but the Florida Supreme Court has affirmed that such immunity precludes the use of compelled testimony in any criminal prosecution against the witnesses, ensuring that the witness is protected from self-incrimination. There's another case that speaks to that. Therefore, while a person is required to comply with an investigative subpoena and provide testimony, the testimony giver cannot be used against them in future criminal proceedings with the exception of perjury charges. So why is that important? Because if a person lies during an investigative subpoena and is charged with perjury, the perjured statements can indeed be used to charge the individual for other crimes in the state of Florida. In other words, if she makes inconsistent statements and it can be proven that she made inconsistent statements during her subpoena, that is not immunized. That can be used as a prior inconsistent statement, as an exception to this derivative immunity rule, and can be used to even charge her in the Madeline Soto case in conjunction with whatever is going on with the investigation with Stearns and whether or not she's ever been considered to be a co-defendant in this case. So the Florida statute 914.04 says that while a person compelled to testify under subpoena is generally granted immunity from prosecution based on their testimony, this immunity does not extend to perjury committed during that testimony. Specifically, the statute states that no testimony so given or evidence so produced shall be received against the person upon any criminal investigation or proceeding. But it makes an exception for any criminal investigation or proceeding for perjury committed while giving such testimony, or for any perjury subsequently committed, then those statements are open season, fair game. Witnesses, persons not excused from testifying or producing evidence in certain prosecutions or ground testimony might incriminate themselves through the use of inconsistent statements. There's even this case. In the case of State versus Mitrani, the court clarified that the immunity provided under Section 914 includes use and derivative use immunity, which precludes the compelled statements and any information derived from those statements from being used against the witness in any subsequent prosecution, except for perjury committed in the course of giving those statements. So this means that while the statements made under immunity cannot be used to prosecute Jen for other crimes, it can be used to prosecute for perjury. And if it is an inconsistent statement that relates to this investigation, it may be used against her in this case. So I'll tell you what, there is arguments to be made against these perjured statements being used in this Madeline Soto case. That's going to be a job for her defense counsel if she ever is charged. And she did have an attorney during this interview with law enforcement. But arguably, she can try to make an argument that these statements should not be allowed to come in, that even though they were inconsistent statements, it was not like they were inconsistent statements and that I was purposefully lying, whatever argument she's going to try to make. They're going to try to use the statute, but the reality of it is, as far as I can tell, under Florida law, there is nothing protecting perjured statements from this derivative immunity umbrella that she's currently under. So although right now it appears that she might have immunity, and people have been, including myself, I initially saw that and I was like, you got to be kidding me. And a lot of people were disappointed at that, like, oh, she could never be charged. But that's not necessarily the case. For example, if there was a witness to come forward that would vehemently throw out any testimony such that, oh no, this wasn't just, oh, it happened at 11:30 as opposed to 8:30 and your memory was just foggy. If she outright deceived law enforcement, and which encumbered this investigation to any regard, and they have witness testimony to back it up or some tangible piece of evidence to back it up, I don't think that this derivative immunity is going to shield her from charges in this case. And I'm not just talking about perjury. I'm talking about inconsistent statements that were related to the Madeline Soto investigation. And so there is still hope that she may be charged, but the way that the cops are talking, the way law enforcement is talking right now, it just doesn't look to me like they're all that invested in it, which one of two things. Either they have what they need to get from her, and they don't believe that Jen was responsible in any way for the things that Stearns did, but for her bad parenting. It might be that they have, and there is no tangible evidence to suggest that she was in or cooperating with Stevens in his commission of the crimes, and that they just wanted to ensure that, look, even if there's two monsters here, one of them is bigger than the others. And we got to make sure that we pin this effing guy down, because I don't want under any circumstance her absence of her testimony being able to help him in any kind of a way. That might have been a thing. Some of you had asked why they would go this route knowing about derivative immunity. And it was simply this. I think that at that point, they had enough to at least know that she wasn't directly responsible for the abuse. I have to believe that, because if there's any evidence in any of those images or videos that haven't been released to the public that she was in any way involved knowingly, I don't think that derivative immunity would have been a thing. Not in this case. So I think what you have here, in my estimation, is potential charges into failure to protect your children, parental neglect, secondhand child abuse, allowing your child to be molested and subsequently murdered by Stephen Stearns. Those are all charges that, whether or not you like it, jurors are loath to find people guilty. Unless you have cold, hard facts, those are tough cases to prosecute. You can take those cases to trial, but they're never a slam dunk. They just are never a slam dunk. All it would take is one juror to sympathize with her. And you've already seen one in the comments. I don't think she said that. I don't think that Jen is the monster here. I think that, she was naive and dumb and stupid. And, that might not be the majority opinion. It is an unpopular opinion. But all it takes is one juror to sympathize with her enough to not get a conviction. So my thoughts are, I think that they had this case pretty well wrapped up, or had a pretty good idea of what happened on April 18th when they took this interview. They just wanted to make sure that Stearns, under no circumstance, would be allowed to weasel his way out of it. And so what better way, screw it. We're going to give an investigative subpoena, and we're going to have her come down to the station. She's going to give testimony. If she perjures herself, at least there is a door open to potentially charge her in the future. But we want to give her, because I think there's a couple of things. They already know that she had lied in her initial statements to law enforcement. They already knew that. If she was of guilty mind and conscience to lie again, then I think they were banking on, if she did that, then obviously they'd be able to use it. But I don't think that, I don't know what they thought. Man. I was going to try to make an argument that maybe they thought that they were going to use this as an opportunity. Maybe she gets so comfortable that she starts making incriminating statements. But if they did that wasn't going to be helping her. It was going to be helping Stearns. And so, to the extent that they wanted her to help with the investigation, fine, I guess. But if she was stupid enough to perjure herself or hinder the investigation in any kind of way, In other words, maybe she's just still trying to lie to help Stearns. Maybe. I don't know. Then they could still, I guess, charge her in that way. In my opinion, what I think happened here is they just wanted to make sure they had Stearns pinned down. And even though they probably had enough to charge her, it's not a slam dunk. And I think that they just chose Stearns, and that was going to be enough. Is that going to satisfy everybody? No. I'm still not 100% confident that she's never going to be charged. It seems to me that there is evidence that she may have perjured herself in the course of this investigation. That may lead to subsequent charges. I don't know. But we're going to take a listen to some of the interview that she gave to law enforcement. It's going to piss you guys off. I'm just letting you guys know right now. Again, I am using video from Grizzly True Crimes, who I still say and will always say is the best in the business when it comes to getting these FOIA documents and these materials for all other content creators to use in their videos. She 100% is the best. She's been on this case from the very beginning. She's one of the leading content makers when it comes to this specific case. She's done an amazing job of accumulating all of this stuff. So if you haven't already done so, make sure you get on over to her channel and give her a subscribe, because she does a lot of good work. Matter of fact, I think she might be live streaming now. But before I get any further, let me share with you this screen. I'm going to share with you the first aspect, the very beginning of the interview. The cops are kind of explaining to Jen as she's sitting there with her attorney. They're trying to sort of explain what derivative immunity is. They kind of do a bad job of doing it. To give this kind of a weird example, but you'll get a feel for what they were going after, and I'm going to share my thoughts and opinions as we go through it. So here it is.
Me, it's 8.
Let me make sure that I get to the beginning of it. All right. It starts at 1:58. And again, this is at the Grizzly True Crime. I'm not going to go play the entire hour 10-minute interview. I'm just going to play the highlights for our purposes. But here it is. The interview starts now.
That this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share.
To Grizzly.
It is April 18th, 2024. I am William J. I am the division chief for the homicide unit. With me is Danielle Pinnell, also from the homicide unit in Kissimmee. Can the detectives identify themselves?
Detective Mark Morris.
Detective Kyle Smallwood.
And with us is
Jennifer Soto.
with your attorney,
Matthew Spark.
All right. We went over some things before we went on the record and told you had the opportunity to ask any questions that you needed to ask. If you need a break to consult with your attorney, that is absolutely fine. We'll all step out of the room, turn off our recorders, and let you exercise your constitutional right to have counsel. There's no problem with that. There's water fountains here. There's restrooms. I don't know if you're a smoker or not, but like if you get desperate, we can make an outside break time, but we are kind of under time constraints. With that all said, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is an investigative subpoena, so you've been compelled to be here. And in our country, under the 5th Amendment and 14th Amendment as applied to you under the Florida Constitution as well, you cannot be forced to incriminate yourself. So anything you say today can't and won't be used against you unless you just don't tell us the truth. And I've already explained to your attorney, Mr. Bark, whether or not you've made any inconsistent statements in the past, that is dirt under the bridge, and either a misdemeanor was committed or it wasn't, but we're not going to be using that as a basis of some sort of perjury by false statements, because those other charges wouldn't be perjury anyways.
And the reason he's saying that is because whatever those statements were, they weren't done under oath. Now, you heard her just take an oath right now. This is basically a deposition. It is a criminal deposition. Before they even start, they make her take an oath to tell the truth. Now she's under oath. If she lies now it's perjury. So what they're intending to do is say, look, we know they're basically queuing her up. So we know that you gave us some bullshit responses earlier. I don't even care. I just want you to be truthful now. And they're going to try to frame this as in, if she lies here, they're not going to use, they can't use it against her, but it could be perjury. But the way that he did that was very clever. He confused her, basically stating that all your inconsistent statements from before, that's not even perjury, so don't even worry about it. So just be truthful with this now. Now, she had an attorney with her, so I'm sure he cued her into the fact that if you lie or you perjure yourself in this, basically what it's a deposition, then they can maybe use those against you, and it will not be protected because it's a perjured statement, it's an inconsistent statement, and it could lead to other stuff. I don't know if they went that deep into it, but this investigator is disarming her and getting her comfortable, and he's trying to get her to tell the truth. They're genuinely interested in her. Just stop bullshitting what's going on.
So the most important thing today is to tell the truth. I also explained derivative use immunity, which means if you said that there was a gun, and obviously there's no gun in this case, buried in your attorney's yard, we couldn't go dig up that gun if you told us that, oh yeah, there was the gun that was used is right there. We wouldn't be able to do that. We would have to show that we learned all those things independently from this interview. Okay? Do you have any?
That's another cue that just because this was done under the guise, not the guise, but under an investigative subpoena, if they have independent evidence that leads to incriminating aspects about Jen Soto, they can still charge her. They don't need this interview, but that's kind of common sense.
Any questions? All right, so let's get started.
Before you start, let me just make sure we're clear on the record. Off the record, we had discussed our position on the concerns we have. Ms. Soto was interrogated by law enforcement previously. She was under a tremendous amount of duress and stress, being that her child was missing and then she was informed was found deceased. There's been media.
This is her shitty defense attorney that's like, hey, just so you know, my client is scared and everybody's bringing out the pitchforks for my client, and so just be nice. He's basically doing this thing trying to calm down his client, but I hate this part of the interview when attorneys do stupid shit like this.
Hysteria about this. There's been people asking for her to be prosecuted, tarred, feathered, executed. And so with that said, we have the concern that you brought up about if there's something said inconsistent today, not being used against her for filing a false police report.
All right, so for example, if she said something that was false then, and we have no idea that was false now before this interview, but she comes in and admits that it was false today, we can't use these statements or that admission that it was false against her, just like we couldn't use anything else against her from this interview. Okay. All right. My understanding is that on February 25th of this year, you were working at the hotel on Disney property out at Coronado Springs.
Yes.
You
have to answer
out loud and loud enough to get caught on the record. I know.
So they're going to do a lot of throat clearing here, and I'm going to get to some of the highlights and skip around so we don't have to sit through, the small talk. But basically, what you heard his attorney do is, she's worried about, she doesn't want to be, he knows that his client made false statements. They probably had private conversations about what could I be charged with making false statements. These investigators are not trying to charge her for filing false police reports or something like that. This is a murder case. They could give a shit about those. They're trying to get to the bottom of why this little girl is no longer alive, and they want to know how culpable she is. And so part of doing that, this investigative subpoena, as we've stated, they know that Stearns did it. And I have to believe at this point on April 18th, they had no reason to believe that Jen did anything to further Stearns' purposes in taking the life of her daughter. So we have this interview. But at the same time, if there's some independent evidence, some witness comes forward that proves not only was she full of shit, but they have an independent basis to get what they need to charge her, then they're going to charge her. And how many times in these major cases have investigators or law enforcement or district attorneys relied on the statements of the defendant? Most defendants don't admit to stuff. And so if there is an independent basis, which most of the time there is, if somebody is guilty, they can still charge them. So the fact, and the more that I've thought about this, the fact that she has this derivative immunity does not by any means mean that she's never going to be charged. It just means that whatever she said here can't be used against her. That's all. That's all. So I know that everybody has heightened emotions about this case and we're freaking out about that, including myself. When I saw it, it's like, you got to be kidding me. What bothers me most about this case is not the fact that this immunity exists. It's just the fact that law enforcement is talking as if they just have no intention of charging her with anything, unless some groundbreaking stuff happens that she participated in the death of Madeline, which means that everything, all of the lesser includeds, are probably off of the table. And I don't know to what extent they'd still be investigating her to this level back in April. So all of the major investigation into Jen is already done. And so, which leads me to believe, like, if she was going to be charged, it would have been sometime like in late April, early May, which to me, that's the more disheartening part of all of this. But let's continue. Let's get to the part where she talks about getting home from work on that day. It's about 6 minutes in.
When you get home from work, do you need to kind of eat a late dinner before you get settled in for bed?
Yes.
And do you eat there at your home?
Yes.
What do you eat?
I think I had a pub sub waiting for me in the house, a sandwich.
Okay. Did anybody join you in sitting down and eating?
No, I ate in my bedroom.
Okay. Did it look like anybody else had recently cooked food or eaten any food there that night?
From what I saw, no. I didn't see anyone cooking, or it doesn't look like anyone had been cooking.
Okay. I believe in one of your former interviews, you mentioned that Madeline might have gone over with you kind of what she got at the birthday party since you didn't have the chance to go because you were at work.
Mm-hmm.
When and where does that occur?
That occurs like right after I get home. It occurs in my bedroom. Everyone's in my room.
And so by everyone, let's just be clear, since I understand you have some roommates. So what do you mean by everyone?
Okay. Madeline, Stephen, and myself were in my bedroom.
Okay. At this point in time, do you recall what Madeline was wearing?
I don't know.
Let me ask it a different way. Can you tell me whether or not she was wearing a long sleeved green sweatshirt and jeans?
Oh, no.
Okay. Would she have kind of been in her bed gear, or do you think she could have still been in the dress that she wore to her birthday celebration?
She would have been in pajamas. I can't recall the exact pajamas, but she would have been in pajamas. She had already, by this point in the evening, she had already showered and changed out of that birthday dress.
And was it your understanding from your sister that she had gotten dropped off about 8:30, she being Madeline?
8:30, 8:45, something around that time, yeah.
And what's your understanding as to when Stefan had gotten there? If you know. If you don't guess, it's fine.
Actually, while he's saying that, this is important. So there's.
I gotta say, man, as an attorney listening to her speak to the investigators, it's telling to me that she doesn't remember. I mean, she had made statements before about she had seen Madeline that morning, hadn't she? She said she would have been in her pajamas. Maybe she was wearing a long sleeve green shirt or whatever it was. But the fact that she can't remember whether or not she was in her regular school clothes or in her pajamas is telling. And it's telling because early on in this investigation, she would not only claim to have seen Maddie that day, but she was saw her off to school until that story changed. And so now she doesn't even know what Madeline was wearing. Most parents that I've encountered in these missing children's cases remember with biblical detail everything about their last encounter with their children. It's striking. They got like a photographic memory. Like that memory is so ingrained into their heart and soul. There's no mistaking. They're solid on it, and they're eager to get that information to law enforcement. Jen's lackadaisical attitude continues to infuriate many, including myself. But it's just weird to me that she's not even admitting or has any way of stating whether or not she was in pajamas or her school clothes. And she's waffling on that answer. Maybe she genuinely doesn't know. But that's symptoms of something. Either she genuinely didn't see Madeline past the time that she went to bed that night, or she was aware and just turned a blind eye, all of the things, right? But let's continue with this.
Things that you might think should be a certain way, because that's just the way things go. But don't just guess based on past history that it's the same as what happened on that particular day. If you don't know, you don't know.
Then yeah, I'm not sure exactly what time he got there.
Okay. You were at work, so I just didn't know if, like, sometimes families check in, hey, I made it, by text or by phone call or anything like that. Do you not remember any of that?
I don't remember.
Okay. How long were the three of you in your bedroom?
I'm going to say for about 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did Madeline tell you about the party?
She was really happy.
Did she tell you what food they had there at the party?
Yeah, they had her favorites.
What are her favorites?
Puerto Rican food. So arroz con gandules.
I thought Jen wasn't even at the birthday party. Did I get that wrong? How does she even know what she had to eat?
All right, so you're going to have to translate to English. I know frijoles and arroz and a couple other things, but help me out.
If I recall correctly, she had requested rice. It's a type of rice and beans.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say something, man? Look, this is April 18th. This is like not even a month following Madeline's death. And I could not imagine having a child of mine pass away and being in any mood to have a laugh or to just talk casually to anybody about anything. I mean, my grandma just passed away, and that effed me up for a couple of weeks. My grandmother. I mean, granted, she was like 84, and I'm 44, but she was like my mom. She raised me, and it messed me up for a good long while. And talking about her would have drawn an emotional response from myself. I can't imagine it wouldn't have been 10 times worth for one of my children. If one of my children were to pass away, Jesus Christ, I would probably go in a hole for like a year. I don't think I'd be right for, I don't know. I also can't I have no way of knowing how I would react. I can't imagine 3 weeks afterwards, I'm laughing with the cops like this and showing this level of disinterest into making sure that this effing murderer didn't rot for the rest of his life in prison or worse. And so the disconnect with Jen Soto, there is no connection between Jen Soto's humanity and what happened to her daughter. None. And the big question that everybody has is, what is the reason behind that? Before I get too far, Miss T had mentioned that there were other people that had paid for some of these materials. Here's what I know. I know that Grizzly had submitted a FOIA request for all of the documents. And I know that there were others that also submitted other FOIA requests. And so my assumption is that this video that was on Grizzly's site was obtained through her directly. And if I'm wrong on that, I have no idea. But I also am aware that there are other creators. But everything that I've said about Grizzly, about her ability to get documents, I stand by. She's an amazing content creator. And I didn't know that there was a controversy like that, but to the extent that it exists, if the docket, Plunder and Gray Hughes shared costs to get this video, then I'll give them credit as well. But that doesn't discount anything that I said about Grizzly. I don't think that she's has anything malicious when she was posting this on her website. I do know that she's been talking about this case for months, and she put up her own money to obtain similar documents. And I don't think that she shared those costs with anybody. So whoever is responsible for getting this video, and by the way, it could have been multiple. Like she could have obtained this in a FOIA request, same as those other two content creators, and they could have all been responsible for paying their own fees. And so I don't think that there's anything nefarious going on from any content creator. And so I don't want to get in the middle of that. I'm going to give credit to everybody. Miss T says this is Grizzly work. She also paid for her. Yeah, she did. 100%. She did. And so the reality is that there could be multiple FOIA requests and multiple people could pay the same amount of money for the same information. There's nothing stating that they can't. So all of those things could be true. So I don't want anybody to get distracted by that. If Grizzly says this is her independent hard work, I believe her 100% because she has a long track record of getting this stuff herself, and her work is impeccable. Not to say that there's not other amazing creators out there. So I just want to make sure that credit is going where it is due. That is all. And by the way, Molly, I don't even know who Plunder is, but I will check out his explanation or her. I genuinely don't know who that is, but I'll check it out. I'll get to the bottom of it. But I stand by what I said. Let's continue with this interview.
It's rice with pigeon peas.
Okay.
And beni, which is, I'm not sure how it's a pork, but I'm not sure how they cook it.
Okay.
So cooked pork. That's typically what she requests for her parties. That's like her favorite meal.
Okay. And what kind of gifts did she get?
Not for nothing, man, but this is Dad Omar coming out. Why does this little girl got a nose ring? I just want to put it out there. If a 13-year-old daughter of mine came and said, hey, Dad, could I get a nose ring? No. What, to look like a cow? For what? You could get a nose ring when you're good and well out of my house, in college, in your own career, but you don't got a nose ring for what? I don't know. Sorry to get off topic on that, but I don't even know if that's a real or a fake nose ring. And it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. It's an observation from a 44-year-old dad.
She got a lot of money.
Okay.
That's what she ended up showing me. I think she had a few trinkets, but like most of it was just a big wad of money that she was so excited for.
All right. Is there any particular reason Stefan couldn't make it up to the party? Because it's my understanding he didn't exactly work or anything.
He wouldn't have been invited. The party was held at my mom's house, and my mom and him have never had a great relationship. She's never liked him. So he wouldn't have been invited to the party at all. It just would have been my whole family, and then me. If I hadn't worked, I would have been there. Okay.
Now, during this 30 minutes that the three of you are in your bedroom, is Madeline engaging in any of her kind of nighttime routine or, getting ready for bed? What else is going on, if anything?
We spent a long time talking about gifts and having her show me, and then we counted out her money. I can't remember if she had finished with all of her bedtime routine.
Okay. Does she brush her teeth at night?
In the shower.
In the shower? Okay.
Uh-huh.
And that occurred before you got home?
Yeah.
And my understanding with her nighttime medication is that's something that you would like to make sure she had bedtime or so?
Something like that, yeah.
So were you present for that occurring, or did that occur after you got home?
That did not occur on my call. I believe I had instructed Maddie when she got home to go ahead and take them herself.
Okay. And is that something that she's allowed to do?
From time to time, yeah.
When you say they, is there what my understanding was there was some hydroxyzine? Is there anything else she takes at night?
Just hydroxyzine.
All right. And the Miralax is when?
Miralax is.
So that would have been earlier while you were at work too if she took it?
Yeah.
May not have because she was at the party?
Yeah, because I had been training at work that week and we had been going back and forth with my mom's a lot. The Miralax wasn't consistent.
Okay. All right. Now, Madeline, does she lay out her clothes for school the next day, or is that something she gets in the morning, makes a game time decision like my kid?
Typically, it is a game time decision morning of.
Okay. What about this specific evening? Do you remember anything about it?
Yes. This evening, we had,
So they're getting into more small talk about how Madeline prepares for school. And what Jen is displaying is a low level knowledge of how it happens, which may or may not be significant, but it is significant because if it can't be established that Jen has any idea how her daughter gets ready for school, it speaks to her level of involvement in Jen's schedule and her routines and what she should have known or had reason to know when anything was off, which is, in my opinion, probably why they're asking these questions. It might be boring and mundane, it is, but they're trying to establish something. If in her discussion with the cops here, it comes to pass that she is unfamiliar with her regular routine, or she's very familiar with her routine, then it could speak to other possible clues of her involvement. And that's why they're asking these rather mundane questions.
I had already discussed prior to Stefan coming to visit that he was going to help me take Maddie to school that day. So because I knew that that was what was going to happen that night, I had asked Maddie, pick out your clothes, have everything ready, have your backpack ready, your water bottle, everything you need ready so that way you could just grab your stuff and head out. It won't be too much of a hassle in the morning. And so she did. She picked out her clothing. I asked her what she was wearing, and she told me what she had picked out. I said, okay, fine.
All right, so she picks it out, but does she physically take it out of somewhere, wherever she stores her clothes, and put it somewhere?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure if she took that clothes upstairs with her or anything like that.
All right.
That answer is weird. Like, every kid in America with normal parents has a place where they put dirty clothes. They have a place where they keep their clean clothes. They get their clothes that they're going to pick out for the next day from a specific area, and they discard used clothes or dirty clothes in another area. The fact that she's claiming lack of knowledge to that is a red flag to me.
So as far, you didn't see them in your room, and did you have the opportunity to kind of see her cubby part of the living room to see if she had put them on her bed or anything like that?
I hadn't seen them.
Does Madeline have like a water bottle or a hydro flask or whatever the kids call it that she likes to sleep with and bring up or bring wherever she's sleeping?
Typically not. That stays downstairs in her backpack, and then she'll clean it in the morning and then fill it back up and leave it in her backpack. That typically stays in the backpack.
Okay. Favorite stuffed animal or stuffed animals? Anything that always goes with her wherever she's sleeping?
She does have a few stuffies and blankies. Did I see any that day?
Yeah, specifically, did you see if she brought any of that stuff upstairs with her?
No, I didn't see any of that stuff upstairs.
Now, separate question. Generally, habitually, like your attorney was saying, there's a difference between specific memory, but generally, would she do that? Not saying that you saw it that night.
Generally, would she do what?
Have stuffies and blankets and her favorite stuff.
Yes. She typically would.
So if Stefan says something like Maddie's building her nest and getting settled in, would that to you mean like her stuff is part of this nest, or what do you think that would mean if you know?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you recall getting that text from Stefan that night that Maddie had settled into her nest for the night?
I don't remember that text now.
Okay.
Bullshit, she doesn't remember that text, and bullshit, she doesn't know what nest means. If you're talking about nest in text message conversations with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you know what the F they're talking about. Nobody uses that in the regular context of conversation unless you're talking about a bird. Obviously, they weren't talking about a bird. She knows what she's hiding stuff. She's hiding stuff. She is hiding things. She's not lying at this point, but she is not being forthcoming, and it's pissing me off.
Okay. My understanding was that at some point you told them it was time to go to bed.
Yeah.
Do you recall about what time that was?
Around 11 o'clock.
So that's consistent with getting home at 10:30, having this half-hour discussion and eating your pub sub? Is that a yes?
Yes.
All right. Do they comply with your wishes to go upstairs when you say that at about 11 o'clock?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Is there any further communication between either you and Madeline or you and Stefan about all right, kids, it's time to go to bed, anything like that? Or was that the last you had heard from either one of them that night?
I think at some point Stefan comes downstairs to use the restroom and then goes back upstairs, but after that, I don't recall interacting or saying anything, so.
Okay. And my understanding is that you had some sort of parental controls over Maddie's phone. Is that accurate?
I'm not sure by parental controls exactly. I didn't have any limits or anything on the phone set up.
Well, like, for instance, if she wanted to install Game Pigeon, does that have to go through you?
Yeah. So any permissions for any apps, she would have to ask me for.
All right, and does that ring a bell as to occurring that Sunday? Game Pigeon?
I don't remember.
Okay. All right. So that's the last time you hear from either one of them until the morning. My understanding is that Stefan comes down and is dealing with your dog. Is there any communication other than perhaps Stefan coming down to use the restroom? Is there any other communication that you have between Stefan and Maddie? Do you see them? Now, I've said communicate. Do you see them? Do you go up and check on them? Do you see Madeline or Stefan from the point you kick them out at 11 p.m. until you see Stefan at 8 in the morning-ish is what you guess for the dog?
No, I didn't.
There should be no reason for a pause with that answer. Simple question. Did you see Maddie after you put her to bed and sent Steven up there to go sleep with her? Yes or no? The fact that she's like taking a pause to like formulate her answer, she's effing lying. Bullshit, she didn't. Come on, man. This is, I would love to be a fly on the wall of the discussions surrounding whether or not to charge Jen. I'm so curious about what other evidence they don't have, because it can't be the case that, these responses from Jen were not suspicious to them enough for a follow-up investigation. And for all I know, maybe there is a continuing ongoing investigation into Jen. I'm just saying that when I was at the DA's office, in these kinds of cases, it would never be the case in any of the DAs that I worked with that you would have a case this incendiary that would involve immunity of any kind to somebody with this many red flags answering very basic questions that should not elicit any amount of time to formulate a bullshit answer. But California operates a little differently than Florida. I don't know if one is better or worse. All I'm saying is, if Jen Soto is not charged with something by the conclusion of all of this, I will be shocked. I would be shocked. Derivative immunity aside, come on, there's too many red flags. Now look, maybe they have actual tangible physical evidence that somehow exonerates her, exculpates her. I don't know. Maybe they're just not interested in charging her with all of the lesser includeds because they, on some level, believe that she was also victimized by Stearns. I don't know, man. But I'm not interested in Soto's well-being. I'm interested in justice for Madeline, because she didn't deserve this. She deserved to have a mom that was going to protect her from that monster, and she didn't get it. And that's my singular focus when I think about this case.
I didn't see them.
Okay. Now, when you go to sleep, do you sleep through the night, or do you wake up and not have consistent good sleep?
I sleep through the night.
Okay. So there wouldn't be any points in time where you get up and you're taking steps or just checking on your phone because you can't go back to sleep? As far as you remember, when you go to sleep, you're out until the dog thing in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you hear or see anything during those hours involving Stefan or Madeline?
I didn't hear or see anything at night.
All right. What's the first thing you remember when you wake up after having gone to sleep?
Could you hear the frustration in the interrogator's voice? Like, I noticed he's having visceral reactions to Jen's lackadaisical responses. I couldn't imagine not having those kinds of not being angry during this interrogation. It is a skill sometimes to interrogate criminals, people that you know are guilty, to keep your cool. It really is a skill, because the second that you lose it, then you lose the interrogation. You have to be completely poker face. This guy is like on the edge, it seems like, when he's asking these questions.
I wake up to Stefan trying to put the leash on the dog.
Okay. Now, is this the first time that you've ever woken up to Stefan trying to put a leash on your dog, or is that something that has occurred before in the past?
I'm going to say this is the first time. It's not normal for any of us to put the leash on the dog on the bed, because if he's on top of any, like, bed, couch, anything, he'll pee. He gets really nervous. You have to do it on the floor. So I found it really weird that he did that, but.
All right, so let me ask it a little more broadly. Is this the first time Stefan's ever come into your room while you're sleeping to take the dog out for you in the morning?
I can't recall if something before.
Not something that requires a pause. If I was to get up at 4:30 in the morning to take my dog out for a walk, my wife would be like, bullshit, who's that lady down the street? We're going to all walk the dog together. It's exactly what she would say, because obviously that's suspicious. Nobody gets up at 4:30 in the morning unless they're scheduled for work. That guy was not scheduled for work. He was out going to cruising to vape shops and comic book stores later on that day. He was supposed to take Madeline to school at 8 that morning. There's no reason for him to get up at 4:30. And if it was a thing, that would have been a no hesitation response. Is it normal for him to walk the dog at 4:30? Yeah, it is. He does. It's like a routine. On Mondays and Wednesdays, he walks the dog at 4:30 a.m. because he likes the briskness of the cool air. That is not a question that warrants a pause.
Okay. Did you find it unusual then, or what did you think when this is occurring?
When it happened, I think it was more, I found it off, but I was more worried over the dog. I was like, please don't pee on the bed. I don't want to do laundry.
Okay.
I was more worried over the dog. Ladies, could I just ask you a question? For everybody in the chat, if your boyfriend, when he doesn't normally do this ever, decides to take the dog for a walk at 4:30 in the morning, how many red flags would that raise? If my wife were to get up, oh, I'm just going to go take the dogs for a walk. Like, hell you are, bullshit. Since when? Since when? There's no way that's not raising red flags if it's never happened before. Oh, but I was just more worried about the dog peeing on the bed. What kind of answer is that? What logical thread does that follow from? Does that flow from? Asha says that the interview after this one was insane. Yeah, we're going to get to that interview. Today is about this one, because most people, this was actually a special request by my head star moderator, Pam Chasm, Star Chasm. She wanted us to cover this derivative immunity interview. But all those other interviews, we're going to get to all of those too. Just we probably don't have enough time today.
So I was more anxious over that. He put the dog on the leash and told me to lay down and go back to sleep. And I said, okay.
So were you not laying down when he tells you to go back and lay down?
No, when he put the leash on the dog, I shot off the bed because I was going to help him. I was like, no, let me do it. And he's like, no, go back to sleep. I'm fine. I got this.
Okay.
I said, okay.
Now, do you go back to sleep, or do you check your phone or do anything?
I think I go back to sleep. I can't look at anything.
In this period of time that you have been awoken by Stefan, do you hear or see anybody else in your household?
I hear somebody in the kitchen. I'm not sure who it was.
Okay. Could you identify it by size, like their steps? Could you identify gender by their voice? Anything like that?
all I heard was sounds of like cabinets shutting, like somebody in there shutting, like looking for something and shutting.
Okay. Now, if your daughter had been awake, would she come in and say goodbye to you before school or not? Just let you sleep?
I would have hoped she would have come by and say goodbye to me.
Not a response that requires a pause. Any parent knows, look, your kids have morning routines. I know all of my children's morning routines. My 18-year-old who's like off, she's got a job all of a sudden. She's like a real adult with a bank account and, going to college. She has a morning routine that I could tell you a play-by-play what she does every morning. And if she doesn't do certain things, then it would be weird. My daughters, the 4 and 5-year-olds, they wake up every morning. They bust out of the rooms as soon as the sun is up and they're in the bed, all elbows and knees, waking up both of their parents. Jesus. I knocked my headphones off my head mics. But they're, that's not like that. That's an immediate. Oh yeah. So what do your children do when they wake? Well, as soon as the sun is up, they come busting into the room and they start jumping on the bed and trying to get everybody up and demanding pancakes and wanting to go to grandma's house and all this other stuff. The fact that not only is she pausing to formulate a response, but she's like laughing about it, could be interpreted as nervous laughter. It could, or it could be also interpreted as a complete disconnect from a mother who never gave a shit about her daughter enough to check up on her. That what is this all like a joke? There's some people. Have you ever met people like that where it's like, I don't believe that you're in tune with. I don't think that you know what's going on around you. How could you have that reaction? And usually it's the result of some kind of mental illness, some kind of maybe they're on medication. Maybe there's a lot of things going on, but her behavior in her, number one, her responses are red flags. Number two, her behavior lends me to believe, in my experience, that she probably has multiple mental illnesses. If she genuinely has this level of disconnect between what's going on with her daughter and reality, if she is really not involved in the commission of any of these crimes.
I can't remember if this is one of the first times that Stephen actually took her to school, so I would have hoped she would have said good night, but I'm not sure.
All right. So do you fall back asleep?
I do.
And when do you wake up and how do you wake up?
I wake up at like 9 o'clock in the morning to my alarm. I wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning to my alarm. I get ready. I think at around 9:30, 9:45, I leave for my doctor's appointment.
Okay. So in this period of time from when you're waking up and getting ready, do you see anybody else in your home?
Again, a weird question to pause to. Did you see anybody else in your home? What's the pause? What is the pause? It's going to continue on like this for some minutes. I want to get to where they start talking about Stephen resetting his phone and then going into her explanation and why she was late in picking up Madeline and other stuff. But let's skip ahead to this portion of it.
Is that the plan, to get her together, or was it ever discussed that he would get her alone?
The plan was for us to get her together.
Okay. All right. And so does he leave before you leave?
Actually, before this, while we were still discussing, while we were having the conversation in my room, he did mention at one point, while he was sitting there, that he had to reboot his phone, or that he had to update his phone. And what was it? He had to update his phone. So I told him, stop avoiding it, do it. Like, updates take a while, like, do it. And while he was,
isn't it kind of weird that she's even bringing up the phone reset thing? I don't believe that law enforcement asked her specifically about that, but why is she bringing it up? I don't know if that's a red flag or just her genuinely recollecting that conversation with Stephen. But it's interesting that it pops up at this point in the interview.
Updating his phone, he said, I don't know what I did, but I just factory reset my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that's weird. I didn't know that you could do that. He said, yeah, a button popped up and I pressed it and it just reset my entire phone. And I'm like, oh, that sucks.
So does he leave before you do to go do these errands he was telling you about?
Yes, he does leave.
Do you stay at home until it's time to go get Madeline?
Yes.
Do you hear anything from Stefan while he's out doing these errands?
No.
Okay. So 2:30 rolls around. Is Stefan back home yet?
No. At this point, I leave.
Do you try and call him or text him or communicate with him?
Yeah, I had been calling him like maybe starting 15 minutes before I was supposed to leave just to see where he was.
Did he answer?
No. I leave at 2:30. Around 10 minutes later, I get a phone call from him. And he said, I'm so sorry. I left my phone at home again on accident. I was driving down 192 and my tire exploded or shredded. And I had to pull over into one of the plazas and change my tire. I heard, he said,
That must be true. That must have really happened because it's pretty easily verifiable. I'm not sure why she would lie about that. She probably genuinely got. I am noticing there's not many pauses as much as there were before when she's recollecting stuff about her daughter. But when it comes to other stuff about just her and Stearns, just like immediate recall, there's no need to pause. Her detailed life with Stephen, she seems to be able to remember. I don't know. She seems to be truthful at this point in the interview.
That he hurt his thumb doing that. And that, he was late and didn't make it back on time for that reason.
All right. When you leave to go pick Madeline up at 2:30, do you take her phone with you?
I do.
And how is it that you come to get her phone to go with you?
At some point in the morning, I was organizing and putting things away, and I walked into her bedroom and I saw her phone on her dresser. And I just assumed, she must have left it here while getting dressed and forgot it.
Okay. Was it on?
Yes.
And sometimes when you bump or move phones, the notification screen comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Did you happen to do that? And did you see if there's any incoming notifications that she had missed?
I hadn't seen any, no.
Okay. All right. So you go to school, and due to time constraints, like an NFL football game, we're going to kind of jump ahead a little bit. My understanding is that you want to be first in line,
mm-hmm.
and you have to get there early to do that, and I understand that.
Yeah.
She doesn't come out.
She doesn't know.
Did you call her phone?
I did.
Why did you do that?
Because I forgot I had it with me. I was like, where is she? Why isn't she out yet? So I start calling her phone, and then I start realizing I'm hearing vibrating, and then I look down, and I see her phone's with me. I'm like, oh.
Okay.
How am I going to get a hold of her? Because I'm the first in line. The cars behind me already have children. They're full. They're waiting for me to leave.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to kind of jump ahead. Did Madeline ever complain to you about believing that Stefan had taken her Christmas money?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Christmas money went missing. And we were both, I don't even know how to explain this. We had collected all of her envelopes of Christmas money and consolidated into one. I'll put all her money into one.
Yep.
And then I said, I will put this somewhere safe. And I thought I had put it in my nightstand. A few days later comes around, whatever. We start looking for it or asking for it or something like that, and we can't find it. We can't find it at all.
So let me just narrow it down. Did she accuse Stefan of taking it?
I'm not sure if she did directly.
Come on, man. Christmas money is a big deal. Hey, Dominic, You were a kid not too long ago, man. When somebody would give you a crisp $100 bill for Christmas, what would go through your head?
Dude, I'd be excited. That's like the best gift I think you could give like a kid.
Yeah, don't give them a sweater. Give them money. Give them money. They don't want they don't want clothes. It's like the worst thing you give a kid. It's not the worst thing, but to them it is. You give a child money, they're going to be excited about it. If somebody were to take your $100 bill, would you be shy about accusing whoever you thought it was? No, you would probably sound the alarms. Now, I don't know what Madeline's proclivities were towards doing something like that. I don't know how fearful she was of Stephen. This girl has been horrifically tortured for years. I don't know. But I got to imagine this was a simple question. Did she ever accuse Stern directly or indirectly of stealing the money? She's waffling on this response. And I'm starting to believe that she has this weird... she's like, what's up, Melissa? Come on in. I'm starting to believe that she has this weird thing that she feels the need to maybe even subconsciously protect Stephen. And she's probably had it for years. There's no reason for her to not be forthcoming with her response. And the waffling of the response is starting to get to me. It's raising another red flag.
We both had the suspicion, but we're like, no, could he have? No, I don't think so. But I eventually found that money.
Okay, I was just gonna
How much was the money? I guess they found it, but I wonder how much the money was.
history hand. All right. So you just started this job at Disney Coronado Springs like a week or two earlier, is that right?
Yes.
And your sister and other family members would help with Maddie getting to school because of your job?
Yes, my mom and my sister, yes.
Okay. Why is it that now Stefan on February 26th is coming up to help as opposed to any of your family members helping getting Madeline to school?
I had asked for him to come and help me because I think I was working a lot of night shifts or like really late shifts. And I just wanted the opportunity to see Maddie, because I wanted to spend more time with my daughter throughout the week while I was working, versus had she had stayed at my mom's, I wouldn't have seen her all week.
Okay.
So that was just me wanting to see her and spend time with her.
Did Madeline stay at your mom's house fairly frequently?
Every few weekends here and there, like just for the weekend kind of thing.
So like if she described it to her friends as like her second home and like kind of offer up it's better jacuzzi and pool, does that sound like that's the place?
Yes.
Where does Madeline sleep when she's over at your mom's?
She will sleep in bed with my mom.
Okay. Did she ever have sleepovers? Like have friends come over and sleep over?
Slumber parties, no.
Did she ever go and attend any?
No.
Is there any particular reason? I mean, she's a 12-year-old girl on the cusp of being 13.
Yeah, I've been very uncomfortable with sleepovers just because I know what can happen.
Get the f out of here. She knows what can happen at sleepovers.
Don't tell me you don't know or you don't think.
Melissa, you know what we're talking about, right? This is Jen Soto, mom, the same mom that had told her boyfriend to go sleep in the bed with her 13-year-old daughter. This is who we're talking about. And she just told this investigator, she's leery of sleepovers because she knows what can happen at sleepovers. You son of a bitch. Not you. That is why I got to replay. It's like beyond belief that she actually said that. Let's back up. Let's try this again.
Cusp of being 13.
Yeah, I've been very uncomfortable with sleepovers just because I know what can happen. Anything can happen at a sleepover.
Well, then you can be the host house like we kind of were. You never hosted any sleepovers for her friends?
For her friends, no.
Did she ask about it?
Yeah, she did ask.
Not for her friends, but for her boyfriend. Oh, here's my daughter on a silver platter. Go up to her room. Just, I got to sleep. Go up there and have a sleepover with my daughter. But she knows what could happen at sleepovers.
Was it probably a source of contention or arguments?
It was, I guess what was the sort of argument is she wanted to really sleep over her best friend's house, and I just kept saying, no, you never know what could happen. I don't know the dad, I don't know the brother, I don't know anybody there. Like, I don't know what could happen to you. So, just afraid of her getting assaulted.
Okay. Did Madeline do her own laundry?
Yeah.
Did she cook for herself?
I was teaching her how to make a few things, so I mean, yeah, she could, I guess.
Okay. What's her normal routine for getting ready for bed?
We give her her meds.
I'm sorry, take your time.
I wish you could see your face. I'd imagine that these are fake tears. Whatever she's doing, it strikes me as fake tears.
We get ready for bed. I'd give her her medication. She would get in the shower.
Take a long shower, I understand.
Like an hour plus, yeah.
Okay.
She loved it.
An hour plus shower?
Okay, yeah, that's disturbing and that's
Jesus. I mean, I don't know. I've never.
Omar, I'm a woman. That's concerning.
Why?
That's really concerning.
Explain.
Okay. According to all the girlies, everything showers take a top of 45 minutes. But she's. Can you hear me?
Oh, no, you're muted. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go for it.
So everything showers generally take up to 45 minutes. This girl, 13-year-old, was taking an hour plus longer showers. That's precisely what the mom is describing.
What you need to be in the shower for 45 minutes for?
It's called an everything shower.
Jesus. All right. Okay.
But 13-year-olds do not need an everything shower. Just saying.
Let's continue.
She'd get out. She'd get dressed. She'd let her hair towel dry for a while, and then she would brush it. We would watch some TV. She'd probably have a snack before bed as well.
Okay. What were kind of her nighttime uniforms? I mean, everybody kind of has their pajamas, but they're not necessarily pajamas. What was her routine nightwear?
She really liked wearing shorts. So she had a few pajama outfits, but she really liked wearing shorts and baggy t-shirts.
Okay. How about her routine getting ready for school in the morning? What's that about?
We'd wake up. The alarm would start ringing around 7:30. We'd snooze it up until 8 o'clock.
All right. So that's significant because boyfriend went into the room to walk the dog at 4:30 in the morning. She says, I wasn't so concerned about that. I was more worried about my dog peeing on the bed. She claims it wasn't a routine thing, but he gets up to walk the dog at 4:30 in the morning. But their regular routine is wakes up at 7:30, hits the snooze button until 8 a.m. and then they get ready for school, I guess. So there is a logical disconnect in the regular timeline, which means that there should have been, in a reasonable person, standard for parental neglect, that something was wrong with Madeline and boyfriend, who had just gone up there to sleep in her room in the hours ensuing. There's red flags all over the place.
Then she'd get up. She'd get dressed. And then she'd lay back down in bed while she would wait for me to make her breakfast.
So she's a breakfast eater?
Yes.
Okay.
She'd have breakfast. Then she would start, with brushing her hair, brushing her teeth, putting on makeup. At 5, I would give her ADHD medications for school.
Is that every day or just school days? So it sounds like you're heading out 8:45 or 9?
Yes.
And it takes what'd you say, 15, 20 minutes to get to school?
Yes.
And first bell's 9:38?
9:20.
Something like that.
I'm going to skip ahead to where she starts talking about the sleeping arrangements between her and Steven.
How long has she been dating this guy?
Oh, it had been years. I think they had broken up, but he was like still there. She said just like to give a normal appearance because Steven was sort of like her dad. That's what she said.
A normal appearance?
Well, I'm assuming what she meant by that is over the course of years during their relationship, they had become a family unit. That's what Madeline was used to, and she wanted to, for the purposes of keeping up appearances, I guess, to Madeline, allow him to continue to live in the house because I guess he had some fatherly role, according to Jen. Not according to this is according to Jen.
And
so
for her, it was a normal sleeping arrangement to send her boyfriend. Let's say it was.
Well, she's gonna explain herself right now. Let's hear her say it.
Where he goes after you break up?
No, he stayed in my room for a few months. We had broken up, but we weren't sure how to discuss it with Maddie because it was the middle of the school year, and I didn't want to affect her in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So we just played it off. Acted like everything was normal and fine for the first 6 months. And then eventually she caught on. And then once she did, we admitted to her that we were broken up. And then, at that point is when he moved up to bedroom 4.
Okay. And once he moved up to bedroom 4, were there instances where Madeline would sleep alone upstairs with him?
I'm going to say
I want you to think carefully before you answer because obviously we've gone through your phone and we've seen all the conversations that you've had with Stefan. So it's clear that that's occurring. So I'm giving you the chance to answer the question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how many times it's happened.
Okay. Why are you allowing that to occur?
I saw Stefan as someone that I completely trusted with my life, my child's life. I thought he had cared for her as a father would. He had been in her life for more than half of it, playing the father role. I thought he cared for her the way I did.
The level of anger that I have.
Calm down.
Here.
I know what you mean, and I know what you're feeling. You're a father of 3 girls.
Young lady.
Oh, young lady, yes.
Telling me to calm down. Look, man, the level of anger that I feel towards this lady right now and her explanation as to why she's allowing Steven to sleep in the same bed. Gosh, but you're right. I got to compose myself. It's, even if that were the case.
I get you. You're a dad of 3 girls. Like it just infuriates you.
You couldn't pay me money to voluntarily sleep in the same bed with my, any of my daughters.
That's what I was going to ask you. That's not normal. Not even like a biological dad. I've never slept in the same bed as my father. No.
Nope. Matter of fact, the other night, little Evelyn, it was like 2 a.m. She broke into the room. Like, Dad, I want to sleep in the bed with you. I was like, nope. Picked her up and carried her and told her a bedtime story and put her right back in her bed. Well, she was scared because her nightlight had turned off. It's like, no, you can't sleep in the bed with Mom and Dad. You're going to have to.
She has to get used to her own.
Well, she is, but she got scared because her nightlight had went off.
I know.
So I went in there and I turned it back on, told her a bedtime story, and she was back in bed, and it was cool. But we've never normalized sleeping in the parents' bed. You don't sleep in the parents' bed. Nobody sleeps in your bed. You could not pay me money to get to, unless I absolutely had to because of.
You're in a hotel or something along.
No, you're in a hotel. They're getting their own room. They will have their own room next to ours, or they'll be like in a separate bed.
Yeah, the conjoined.
Or a room with
conjoined
bedrooms.
Rooms. Exactly.
Yeah. But no, there's no circumstance where we're sleeping in the same bed. And I'm their dad, and I love them more than anybody, and next to their mom. And so her explanation is just, it's infuriating for many different reasons. I'm going to allow her. Well, I'm not going to allow her to do anything. I'm going to continue the video.
Now, does there come a point in time in 2023 where you've kind of had enough of roommate ex-boyfriend Stefan and asked him to hit the road.
Yes.
And is that fair to say it was like October?
Maybe, yeah, like the end of October, because then I gave him all of November and told him he had to be out by December 1st kind of thing. But yeah, that sounds about right.
And then did you kind of ask him to leave a month earlier and it was a source of arguments?
Yes.
Okay. So now at this point in time when he's being asked to leave, have you had any conversation with Maddie that mommy isn't together with Stefan anymore and this is kind of the ways of the world? Do you have that conversation with her?
She had, by June, she figured it out already, so she knew we weren't together or anything like that. So she, by December, yeah, she had already known he was leaving, and
okay.
But that was okay.
Why is he coming back to visit after he's out?
We're still friendly with each other at this point. Christmas is coming up, and we wanted to spend Christmas together. So he comes up for a few days during Christmas, and then he does visit a few more times after that, but for the day. And it's to pick up packages. He keeps getting mail delivered to my house, packages. So he just comes up and picks them up.
And when he comes to visit after he's been kind of kicked out, is he paying rent or how is this working? Or is he just coming to visit?
He's just coming to visit.
Is your father making any arrangements to rent bedroom number 4? Because this is his income that he's losing.
Yeah, we had it. We had like an ad posted to see if we can get any renters. So we were trying to rent it out for them.
I'm going to skip ahead to the 54 minutes in when Jennifer starts talking about Madeline's sleeping arrangements and her menstrual cycle tracking.
This did happen to a girl.
Yeah, she talks about, well, you'll see.
So I want to say it may have been concerns over that.
Okay. Now, June 16th of last year at 9:30 p.m. and 27 seconds, you texted Stefan this: Maddie's no longer sleeping with me. I can't risk it. What does that mean?
Back up. What was the question?
He
55.
texted, she texted him, Maddie can't no longer sleep with me. It's risking it.
I'm going to replay it.
He's no longer sleeping with me. I can't risk it. What does that mean? June 16th of last year at 9:30 p.m. and 27 seconds, you texted Stefan this: Maddie's no longer sleeping with me. I can't risk it.
She was sleeping with
Her mom.
Jen. Texted Steven, she can't sleep with me anymore. I can't risk it. What is,
Yes, exactly.
What does that mean?
I have no idea.
No, oh my God. Okay. Okay.
Let it out, Melissa. Let it out.
I hate when people answer that way.
I have no idea why I texted that. Maybe I was drunk. Maybe I was sleep texting. Maybe it was a butt text.
So precise.
Hey, stranger things have occurred. Neil deGrasse Tyson says that all things are possible. How many red flags does that raise for you? The fact, not just that. Okay, if I had ever sent a weird ass text like that, I would know immediately why I sent it, because that's not a common thing you say to anybody. There would be a point of reference, immediate recall. The fact that she says, I have no idea. Now look, these investigators are not stupid. They know, and they're looking for clues as to whether or not Jen was involved in the sexual assault of Madeline as it was ongoing for years.
They're trying to pick and choose from where to catch things.
Well, I mean, we just talked about derivative immunity. So everything she's saying in this interview can't be used against her unless she lies. So what they're really trying to get her to do at this point is give inconsistent statements that may be able to use in future charges for her. The immunitive derivative strategy of it all is to put her at ease, to get her talking. And they've kind of sort of tricked her into stating that whatever you said before, inconsistent statements or whatever is not even perjury. We don't even care. So just be completely honest, and it can't be used against you. So they're trying to bait her into these. Now, keep in mind, if they have independent evidence of stuff that she's done, that's all fair game. If she gives an inconsistent statement regarding those tangible pieces of evidence, that can probably be used against her at a trial. That's the game that's being played right now.
How often was Maddie sleeping with you?
Often, all the time.
Well, you keep on saying often versus all the time. Was it 100% of the time or not 100% of the time?
If she wasn't with my mom and she was with me, then yeah, she was sleeping with me.
Okay. And if she's at mom, she's 100% of the time sleeping with mom? Your mom?
With my mom, or she does have her own room, I guess. Like there's another spare room she could use, but for the most part, she prefers to sleep with my mom.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that you had some sort of period tracker that you kept track of Madeline's period with?
I had a calendar app.
Can I ask you a question? In my experience, most girls that use these menstrual cycle apps is to know when they're fertile or not. There would be no other. Is there any other reason why you would have that app on your phone?
Yes.
Explain.
I've been using it since I was like 12, 13 maybe.
All right. Well, maybe that's not as bad as I thought it would be. But to me, in my experience, when girls would have apps, it's specifically to gauge how fertile they would be at any given time of the month.
That could be maybe a 50%, because I'm not going to say that we don't look at that. Of course we do. Of course we do.
I would hope
I don't want to have a teen 30th pregnancy. I don't want to do that.
Well, you're not.
But anyways,
You're 30 now.
That's a teen pregnancy. But anyway, when I was younger, I used to use it because I didn't want to stain my clothes, one, and two, because when this first happens,
it's like an announcement.
Now, how do I say this? It's not as precise because your body's changing, so it's getting accustomed to. Exactly. But Omar, I'm just going to point this out.
Okay.
My mom never took track of that crap.
Well, I guess that's my point. Like, why would
my mom never cared about it. The first time I told her that, oh, okay, it happened. Great.
Did she tell you about the app?
No.
How'd you find out about it then?
Oh, as I was growing up, many of my friends got a phone, and then one of my friends showed me the app. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. And that's how we got it. But I mean, my mom never kept track of that shit. She never did. She didn't care.
Well, let's hear more of Jen's explanation.
I would write what days she would get her period, yeah.
And obviously, Madeline doesn't have a job, so she's not going out and buying products that she would need if she had her period, right? You would have to do that for her? Mm-hmm. Is that a yes?
Yes.
So do you remember her using any of those products at all in February? Because I assume you take the trash out, or does she take the trash out, or how does all this work?
I take the trash out. In February, no, I didn't notice her using any of her feminine hygiene products.
Did you have any conversations with her about that?
No, but I didn't notice until after everything.
Because it would have been due like at the beginning of February, and this all happens at the end of February, so she's almost due again in March. So you never had any conversations with her about not having her period at the beginning of February?
No, she's had other periods that have been missed or like super late, so I just assumed this was going to be one of those situations again.
Okay.
But no, I didn't.
But would you talk to your mom about you missing periods and stuff? It just seems like I've never had.
I'm 30 and I don't do it at this point of my life. What makes you think that being 13, I would do that?
Because you don't know any better, and that's your mom? Like you're a kid?
Yeah, you're a child, but your mom starts getting crazy.
I just know this
about why.
I've never had any conversations like that with my daughter, but I'm a dad.
You don't have to. You're a father.
Exactly. And so I don't know what conversations my daughter might have had with
her mother,
her mom, or her grandma,
exactly,
or whatever. I'm just trying to gauge how normal is it to discuss your missed periods with your mom when you're 12 or 13.
Okay. Okay. Point that. You're right. When you're 12 or 13, yeah, that would be weird. Not weird, but that would be weird for you not to get it.
Because what you just said was you're not all that consistent at that age.
Yes.
And so
because
how
your
would they
body-
even know that it's missed then? Because they have no point of reference.
That's the thing. So, I'm not talking about every single girl, but for example, you can get your period as early as 9 years old and you can get it as late as 15.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the normal thing. If you get it before or after, it's not normal. So let's say she got it at 12 and maybe she's by 13 at this point. It's been a year. So she must have known a little bit how it works. But her mom is saying that it used to not be as consistent and some months it was either late or it was missed. So she was not as consistent. Let's put it that way.
My only question is, why the hell would she have that level of knowledge as to it?
I don't understand that part, to be honest with you either. I mean,
that's what I'm getting.
Why is she caring so much? I'm not saying that it's bad to not care, but I mean,
obviously the implication is they're tracking her
menstrual cycle
to make sure she doesn't get pregnant. Or maybe Steven is tracking it to make sure she doesn't get pregnant.
I don't want to say no, but yes. Sounds that way.
Which is what I have been getting at the entire time.
If your mom is tracking it to that point and she's like...
My other question would be like, to what level? Because Steven was talking about her menstrual cycle in previous interviews that we had listened to.
Why the fuck does he know about that?
Which was my question back then. But her mom has this level of knowledge and Steven has, I don't know if he had that level of knowledge, but the obvious implication being they're purposely making sure she doesn't get pregnant or trying to.
And she was checking the trash.
Mm.
That's even weirder.
I don't know, man. I gotta let her continue with the explanation before I run out of time.
Did you ever discuss her periods or lack of periods with Stefan?
I don't think so.
It's my understanding that Maddie had to take Miralax. I'm familiar with that myself because of my daughter when she was little. So she had constipation issues?
Yeah.
Would it ever cause her discomfort, physical pain, bleeding?
Yes.
And how are you aware of that?
She would tell me. There have been moments. So we've gone to doctor's appointments. They've run a lot of tests on her. They told me why her body is doing what it's doing. But she's shown me if there was blood or if she's in the bathroom and she just can't go, like it's stuck. She showed me that too. So
did she ever specifically seek treatment for tears or bleeding or anything due to her bowel movements?
No, I don't think so. Tears or anything like that, no. I don't think there was ever a tear.
Okay. On February 26th, the whole purpose of Stefan coming and taking Madeline to school was so that you could get some sleep. You had missed your medication Saturday night, so on and so forth, right?
Yes.
Is there any particular reason Stefan couldn't have driven your car to take Madeline to school and therefore not embarrass her and he could just drop her off normally?
Yes, but because he's on my car insurance, I was very nervous to let him drive my car.
You did let him drive your car after this occurred though, right?
Yes, but he was very insistent because he wanted to go look for Maddie and he had a spare on his car because he had a flat, so he couldn't drive his car. So he just really wanted to go out. So I just let him, but I wasn't comfortable with it.
Okay. During your previous interviews, and you did it once today, you kind of interchanged I, we, or Stefan dropping Madeline off at school. Did you see Madeline at all on February 26th of 2024, that Monday?
No.
Do you know anything about how she died?
No.
Did Stefan tell you anything about how she died?
No.
Did Stefan tell you about his plans to go back down to Northport in your car that Wednesday morning?
Mm-hmm.
Got any questions, Mark?
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting close.
I'm going to jump through because I was making notes as we were going on. So how frequently did Stefan come up here after he moved back to Northport?
I'm going to say
How many times total do you think he came back here?
2 to 3 times.
Do you remember if those were around specific dates?
One was like the week of Christmas. I can't remember when the other one was.
Was Stefan in town the week or two prior to this last time he came?
I don't remember. It's possible, but I don't remember. Everything is becoming a blur.
Do you remember sending?
Number one red flag whenever I'm cross-examining somebody is when they start saying stuff like, I don't know, it just happened so long ago. Everything is just a blur. I don't know. I can't tell you what happened. I just blacked out. Like hell you did. That is number one red flag. That's like in the top tier of categories of signs of a guilty conscience is when you hear people start talking about it was all a blur. It all blacked out. Normal people in response to trauma have a damn near photographic memory as to sensory details, vision, smells, spatial relation to things. Yeah, sounds, all of these things. Recollection as to what people were wearing, how the weather was. They'll notice things like, oh, there was dew on a red rose as I hit the ground and was knocked unconscious. As you know, they give very acute level of detail as to those things. When they start saying stuff like, it was all a blur, I just don't know, I blacked out, that is 100% sign of a guilty conscience. Whether or not it's attributed to her culpability in it, or her culpability in the murder of Madeline, or her culpability in allowing Stearns to be at her house leading to her death, she has a guilty conscience, and it's not really disputable.
Him a text message asking if he can babysit Maddie while you go have lunch with your friend.
This was a few weeks before. I remember going out a few weeks before. I don't remember asking him to babysit. I don't know where he was.
Did you ever go to lunch with your friend? And he babysat her?
I did go to lunch with my friend, but I don't think he was here. I think Maddie stayed home alone for a few hours.
Okay. When you mentioned Maddie caught on about you guys being broke up, how did that happen? What did she say? Or
I forgot. Me and Stefan were having a conversation, and she goes, "Are you guys broken up?" And we kind of looked at her. I'm like, "Why do you ask?" She goes, "Because you guys are kind of acting like you're broken up. You guys haven't hugged and kissed in a long time." And we're like, "Okay." So we just kind of.
How do you think she felt about that?
Fine. She didn't act sad or happy or anything. You're just like, whatever.
All right. Now you mentioned to me before too that you found her phone on her dresser in like her little bedroom area. Does she have a specific spot where she plugs in her phone to charge? How does she charge her phone?
So on her side of my bed, she's got a long charger. She'll connect it there to charge. Don't know how she charged it that night though. Don't know if she took her charger and moved it to the room upstairs. Not sure.
How do you charge your phone?
I charge my phone.
I'm going to fast forward this to 108 where they start talking more about the sleeping arrangements. And then we're going to wrap it up pretty soon thereafter.
Probably was. I listen to it every night, so I probably was.
Does it shut off automatically?
Around like 4 or 5 a.m., but then I'll notice and I'll press play again.
Okay. Is it fair to say that you're easily woken up or no? By sounds like that, or?
I'm not sure I'm easily woken up. I don't know.
Okay. Now, the purpose of you telling or having Maddie sleep with Stefan upstairs is because you told me before that you needed a good night's sleep. If you needed this kind of sleep previously to when Stefan wasn't there, what would happen?
You mean if Stefan wasn't there and I needed this good night's sleep?
Mm-hmm.
It depends. If I had missed my meds the way I missed them that night and I wasn't feeling or I was feeling just how I was feeling. I'm not sure if I would have had her have her sleep with me on the other side of the bed, or if I would have sent her upstairs to the guest room. But she sleeps like a monkey. She rolls. She'll start on one end of the bed and end up on top of me by the end of the night. And she's a gymnast, I guess. But
Have you ever sent her upstairs to sleep?
no, not for any of these reasons.
Have you ever sent her upstairs to sleep by herself?
Alone?
Mm-hmm.
No.
I'm gonna need to wrap this up.
Okay, one more question. Does anybody use your phone other than you?
No, except for the day that we were sitting in front of my house.
They're asking her that because there are incriminating text messages on her phone. They went over one. I promise you, there's probably a dozen others.
And forensics was in the house. That was the only time I've ever let anyone use my phone, and that was Stefan. Stefan had my phone.
What about, do you wear an Apple Watch?
Yes.
Does it track any of your movements or anything like that you know of? Do you sleep with your watch on?
No, I hardly ever put it on, honestly.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything else.
Do you have anything real quick, Danielle?
No.
Do you have anything that you think we should know, Matthews?
Unfortunately, no.
Good down there?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right.
All right. So that's the interview. That's the interview. Thoughts, Melissa? What do you think?
The Apple Watch could actually give them really good clues.
Well, I'm sure they already know all about the Apple Watch. They have incriminating information about the Apple Watch. That's why they asked her about it. They have incriminating information on her phones. That's why they're asking about those text messages. She didn't offer any statements to it. So, regardless of whether or not she's lying about what she said on her phones, I'm not sure it makes any difference. If they have independent evidence, she's not shielded from that. So everybody's big concern with this interview was the aspect of derivative immunity. I went through, I did my own research into what that means in the state of Florida. And through Lexis, what it is, it's this. It's an investigative subpoena. I will share my screen with you all so you could understand what it is together. But through my own independent research, the way that it works is this. Are you guys looking at it? Yeah. An investigative subpoena in Florida compels a person to attend and testify or produce documents before court, grand jury, or state attorney. State attorneys is the one that we're worried about in this case. The person cannot refuse to testify on the grounds that the testimony may incriminate them. However, the testimony or evidence provided under such a subpoena cannot be used against the person in any criminal investigation or proceeding except in cases of perjury committed while giving the testimony or for any subsequent perjury. Now, if you tell, and that's under statute 91404, if you tell a person that who was suspected of a crime, it might put them at ease. Like, oh, we're off the hook. We got immunity now. No, it's derivative immunity. All it means is they can't use these specific statements to prosecute her in the course of this investigation. But mind you, and I want you to notice that all of the questions that they asked her was based on independent evidence that they already have against her, meaning they weren't so interested in whether or not she's being truthful or not. They have these things. They just wanted to see if,
like corroborating.
Well, yeah, it's a way to get her to talk in a way that she would not have talked previously. And if they're asking her questions they know about the immunity of derivative thing, it's probably because they have independent, all right, Darth Vader, with the breathing into the mic, Jesus. It's probably because they already have independent pieces of evidence establishing certain things. So she has not been granted immunity in this case. Derivative immunity does not 100% insulate her from prosecution in this case. She can still possibly be charged somewhere down the line. What I'm more concerned about is the fact that if they have these things, has she not already been charged with at least the lesser included? That's the big question, the big mystery to me in my mind. So I know that a lot of people saw derivative immunity and they freaked out, but it's not as it doesn't protect her the way that you think. I even had a visceral reaction. The title of this video is, "Oh my God, they can't charge her." Yeah, they can. They can charge her based on independent pieces of evidence. They could charge her if she perjured herself during this thing. They could charge her a number of different ways.
Where's Steve? Stefan.
In jail, awaiting trial. He's never getting out of jail. They're going for death penalty on that effing guy. Like I said, he might be the big monster in this case.
This
but
is in Orlando?
Florida. I don't know if it's in Orlando.
She's mentioned she worked at the Disney something, so maybe.
I don't know. I just know that Jen Soto is not safe. And if you really think about it, derivative immunity is a brilliant mechanism to derive additional evidence, especially when there's co-defendants. So I don't think it's law enforcement being lazy. I think they're using it as a strategic mechanism to pin down Stephen and to possibly lead them to other levels of investigation as to Jen. Now, as they had stated before, if they get a tip off to information leading to other evidence, they can't take this interview. Like, for example, they use the example of the gun. Oh, the murder weapon was buried in the backyard somewhere. They can't think, oh, well, let's definitely go get a search warrant for a gun and dig up the backyard. They can't do that. So the fact that they're asking her these very specific questions, and this was not a comprehensive deposition, it's because they already have corroborating evidence as to certain things that they don't need her statements for. So that's all. It's an exploratory, controversial, but sometimes brilliant investigative tool that they employed. So that was it. That was that was the derivative immunity interrogation that I just heard this past week. It was on Grizzly True Crimes channel. I believe that she got this independently through her own FOIA request. I know that there's others in the course of doing the show, that there's others that also have used their own money to get similar materials. I don't know who's responsible for what. I just know that Grizzly True Crimes has been the one that I've been following, and she has been getting all this information for months now. So if you haven't already, go check out her channel. You can listen to the entire video unencumbered by any commentary on her channel, along with all the other stuff. There's a couple of other interviews that were very salacious that are going to be very triggering that we're going to be getting to next week in our continued coverage of the Madeline Soto case. We've already been going for a couple hours on this one, so we're going to save that one for next week, and I'll give you my thoughts and opinions, and we'll see where we go with this investigation into Jen. All I'm going to tell the public is do not make the mistake of thinking that because of this derivative immunity, that somehow Jen Soto is never going to be charged. You might be disheartened at the language, but it's not as bad as you think. And she's still very much on the hook. She's not been completely immunized from anything. And that's all I got to say about it. For all the rest of you, thank you so much if you've been sticking around for the last hour, 55 minutes with us, thank you so much for doing that. We're going to jump on Family Law After Dark in about 15 minutes. I'll be joined by Melissa. We have some crazy cases to talk about. If you haven't listened to Family Law After Dark and you got some time this afternoon, it's worth a listen. I'm going to be properly lubricated. I'm going to pour myself a whiskey. Maybe Melissa will have one. Probably not, because she's a lightweight. Maybe I'm going to make Dominic a Shirley Temple because he's watching his figure. But we're going to have a good time on that show. I hope to see you guys all there. Dominic, if you could provide a link down in the description below to the FLAD, Family Law After Dark. If you can't find it, just go to my channel. It will be upcoming, like I said, probably in about 10 minutes, and we will get started then. If you guys don't want to join me, that's fine too. I want you guys to have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe out there. Don't commit any crimes, and call me if you need me. We will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.